I have done it. I have beaten Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a game that I have been following since it first was revealed. I have been looking forward to this game, I have been hyped for this game, and the game exceeded my expectations. What an absolute gem this turned out to be. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and let's mull over what in all likelihood, if we're not counting remasters and the like, will end up being my game of the year for 2025. This game has been making the rounds because, in a lot of ways, it is a love letter to a whole lot of other JRPGs, but also particularly Final Fantasy of old. The way the game is overall structured is very similar and reminiscent to an older Final Fantasy game, where it starts out pretty linear, but then it starts to open up and give you sections of an open world for you to explore. And then as you progress the game, you unlock various modes of travel to move around the world, largely as a result of, well, one of your main companions being Eskie. He's kind of the guy you ride around on, and over the course of the game, you unlock upgrades for him to allow him to traverse around the world in different ways. From being able to swim, through breaking through various rocks and coral formations, and eventually even being able to fly and to swim underwater to acquire some loot. It's a game that just continually opens up, and when you think you've experienced like all the game has to offer, the game just widens its scope yet again. In a lot of ways, it is one of my favorite games I've seen in the turn-based style, and I've played quite a few. And I really like how they managed to incorporate real-time dodging and parrying into a turn-based formula. As someone who has a background in Souls-like games, and just Souls overall, this kind of stuff appeals to me. Though, I can completely understand how it would be a massive turnoff for people who just want a more traditional turn-based style of game that is not based on reaction time and stuff like that. You can play Expedition 33 in a way that doesn't involve a lot of parrying or dodging. Funnily enough, there's even power-ups you can acquire in the game through the Picto system that benefit you if you just get hit in lieu of actually dodging or parrying. However, dodging and parrying and countering makes the game, in my opinion, more enjoyable, but also way more manageable. However, that also goes to really highlight one of the best elements of Expedition 33, and that is the build variety and the overall customization in this game. Each character feels and plays completely different to each other, and they have their own unique mechanics. However, they all have various different builds you can elect to take them down to augment their playstyle to suit your preferences. I managed to turn dual sword wielding Verso into a base attack monster. I gave him multiple additional base attacks, an extra turn, and a whole bunch of power-ups to augment essentially his ranged attack. So rarely did I even ever use skills for him after I got to this point. I would just use the gun. Well, only one character technically has a gun. It's mostly just like finger blasting and using base attack for him, and that worked like a charm for me. But there's so many other builds you can elect to go down for Verso, and this applies to every other character. If you wanted a more traditional turn-based experience and you didn't want to dodge or parry, you could bring a character like Luna into the picture and specialize her to be able to heal and revive characters. And you can also dedicate more skill points, less so in attack and more so in defense, increasing characters' HP values or just their overall defense. And you can also pick weapons that give you additional attack if you specialize in those stats. It's a game that has so many different possibilities when it comes to how do you want these characters to play and what is your preferred playstyle. I started off initially really liking dodging. It was more forgiving than parrying, and I found it to be more comfortable overall. However, later on into the game, when I started to get the hang of parrying, I just completely ignored dodging and just focused on parrying, and made it so my counterattacks, an attack you pull off if you manage to parry every attack that an enemy does on a given turn, I made my counterattacks do so much damage by the end of the game, like into the hundreds of thousands. I felt rewarded for going down the playstyle of my choosing, and the game gives you plenty of opportunities to respec a character if you want to. I never managed to respec any of my characters because I didn't feel the need to. However, the option is there if you so choose. And because I was comfortable enough with parrying and dodging, I managed to largely specialize and focus in on damaging abilities and stats for my characters in lieu of focusing exclusively on defense-oriented stuff. Again, suiting my characters to my playstyle. This is something that I really like out of RPGs, and turn-based RPGs especially, and I think Expedition 33 executes on these principles extremely well. And I've talked about this before in this video, Expedition 33 really does feel like an older Final Fantasy that's brought into the modern day. I am not someone who will say that turn-based died or anything. There's a lot of great turn-based games that are out there and that are still popular. However, a turn-based style game in the, well, style of an older Final Fantasy, we don't see that all too often anymore, but Expedition 33 nails on that idea and that principle extremely well. And you combine that with the absolutely amazing soundtrack and visuals that this game brings to the table for a game all about painting. Good God, do they nail the artistry of this game. Every location looks absolutely gorgeous, and the game never lets up in this regard. The game continually blows me away when it comes to just introducing new locations that look absolutely gorgeous. The spectacle, the scale of this world is second to none, and reminds me a lot of another favorite IP of mine, Xenoblade, where the world just feels so massive in scope, and the visual spectacle of it all just grabs your attention and refuses to let go, and you pair that alongside the absolutely amazing soundtrack this has. I mean, if this game doesn't win Soundtrack of the Year, I will be amazed. I found myself quite often just sitting there in combat to listen to the music, especially in big signature boss fights, because the soundtrack and the songs they incorporate into this game for these moments just work so well. And I hear that if you actually break down the lyrics add another depth to everything as well. It's an incredible overall package, in my opinion, where the gameplay is firing on all cylinders, and the music and the visuals and the overall cinema of it all just creates a whole greater than the sum of its parts. It is a soundtrack that will be an absolute joy to go back to periodically and listen to the music, and I cannot wait to go listen to one of those final boss themes right after I make this video. The soundtrack is that good. And while the lip sync, at least in English, leaves a lot to be desired in this game, the actual voiceover performance across the board is incredible. And my hat's off to everyone who voice acted in this game, because everyone nailed it. And the overall dialogue and the level of writing in this game is just so good, but to properly explain why, we need to talk about the story. Because I've gone this far in this video, essentially glazing Expedition 33, and as a RPG, I haven't even really talked about the story. There's just that many good elements to this game. The story itself is also exceptional. The twists and turns in this game make the game feel varied and interesting, unpredictable, but in all the best ways. The characters are all lovable, even right out of the gate. I loved the characters of Gustav and Mael and the interactions with each other, and there's so many great lines of dialogue throughout this game that just add to the overall experience. And this game makes you really like characters rather quickly. Funnily enough though, for two of the signature party members, Luna and CL, it did take a little bit for them to really click for me, but once they did, I was all on board with their stories and the overall characters and how they fit into the overall party dynamic. The game can be depressing and really emotional, but also, again, in a way that reminds me of Final Fantasy in the best of ways, is able to blend in comedic relief and lightheartedness in ways that keep the experience feeling fresh, but also make me care about the world and the characters. The banter between, like, characters Verso and Minoko, second to none.
To what do we owe the pleasure of your company?
We're heading for Old Lumiere.
Okay, bye.
Just the overall character of SK is a ball of joy and wholesomeness. Then in so many games would be so easy to be annoying, but he's just not here. He's just absolutely lovable in this game. The antagonists are written extremely well, and in my opinion, are supremely memorable. This game understands the overall writing tropes of a lot of JRPGs and JRPG style games, and it doesn't shy away from them all the time, but is able to utilize them in such a way to keep you on your toes, and do sometimes, when they need to, buck those trends and to buck those tropes, but never in a way that felt like it was written only to surprise me and not to add to the story. No, every plot twist in this game felt to me as if it was additive to the overall experience, and made the story better, for the most part. Now, I am not going to go into spoilers in this video, but I can imagine some of the twists in the latter parts of the game not being everyone's cup of tea, and I understand that. I think they make perfect sense in the overall context of the story and what the themes and the motifs of this game are. They make complete sense to me. That doesn't mean everyone's going to like them. I'm kind of 50-50 on it myself, but I think what Expedition 33 does so well is leave the door open to possible potential other games in this universe in the future that I want to explore. And I think in certain parts, especially in the later portions of the game really borderline dry humps on that line between really good writing and being overly pretentious. And I think because of how well written the dialogue and the characters are, it pulls the game to the side of good writing instead of being overly pretentious. Though again, it's right on that line. Like, the game can feel really artsy at certain elements, but again, because of how well written the dialogue and the overall writing and the characters are, it keeps the game squarely in the realm of, this is excellent, this is awesome, I want to see more, this is really dang cool. The side content in this game is also rather interesting. Throughout most of the game, you'll have access to some side content like Gestalt beaches where you can unlock the swimsuits doing various minigames, like jumping puzzles or races, or volleyball. Screw the volleyball game, by the way, that one still hurts me. Or there's combat challenges like the Gestalt Arena. But throughout most of the game, I found myself kind of wanting a bit more side content, and then you get to right before the final objective, right? The point of no return. And the game just opens up. And there's so much side content that comes online right at the end of the game. Quest lines for each of the party members. Because you can fly, you have so many places you can now go to. Entire zones open up, stuff like that. There is a lot. On top of all the collectibles, like all the different costumes and music discs you can find as collectibles to play in camp, acquiring all the various weapons for each of the characters. Again, there is a lot. And while not all of it is locked till the end of the game, a lot of it is. Let's talk about the overall level design because I quite enjoyed it. A lot of the levels can give off the feel that they're supposed to be linear or that they at least appear linear. But in pretty much every level, there are multiple ways to go and different pathways you can go down to find other pieces of loot. You might find the odd merchant, or things you want to collect. It's a game that encourages you to go off the beaten path and to explore and to acquire all these resources because they can be massive spikes in power, and there's so many individual elements that I kind of want to talk about. Let's talk about the customization for each of the characters because, oh my god, I love the Picto system and I love the Lumina system. It's very similar in execution to some of those materia systems from older Final Fantasy games, but I think they're really well executed here. Essentially, for each character, you have 3 slots for Pictos. Pictos give you a passive power-up, but also various stat lines. And after 4 bouts of combat with that Picto equipped, you unlock its Lumina, which is just the passive effect. So like, oh, you gain an extra base attack. Or hey, you gain an attack point with each successful parry. Stuff like that. Those passive effects you unlock as a Lumina. Those Lumina require a certain number of Lumina points to be equipped permanently or toggleable on your character. So the customization is this dance, this balance between the weapon, your stat line, and by the way, your weapon can have various passive effects all of its own, the Pictos that you equip, and then all the Lumina benefits and buffs that you've accrued over time. And you can unlock more Lumina points to equip more Luminas throughout exploration, and just by playing the game, you find them in the world. So, even later into the game, you always feel as if you want to explore because you're finding stuff that is inherently valuable for you. Whether that be materials to level up your various weapons, or just Lumina points and stuff like that, or just Chroma, which is the currency in this game, that you can spend to unlock outfits at various vendors, to buy weapons, to buy resources, stuff like that. The game is overall well-paced and well-constructed in this regard. Speaking of pacing, I think pacing is one of this game's strongest elements. The story doesn't outstay its welcome, and while it's not the longest game ever, the game took me somewhere between 30 to 35 hours. By the way, I still had plenty of side content I could choose to do. Nothing outstayed its welcome, and nothing really felt underdeveloped to me. Maybe if I wanted to get really nitpicky, I could think of a few scenes I'm like, I wish we had a bit more time here or there. Nothing that's like moving the needle for me though. This game is really well executed, and for $50, I think this game is an experience worth experiencing and not missing out on. But if you are a fan of turn-based RPGs, or Final Fantasy of old, I wholeheartedly recommend checking out Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The dodging and parrying might not be for everyone, everyone, but again, the variety and builds on offer here with each of the characters is so great, you could probably ignore them for the most part. It's not like they're like necessary mechanics that you have to interface with. Just build for your own playstyle. And if you want characters to be a bit more tanky, go that route. If you want to be a bit more risky and really lean into dodging or parrying, you can go that route too. That's one of the greatest parts about this game. It was an absolute joy to play from start to finish, and yeah, it'll be really hard to topple this game for my game of the year. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, your impressions of Expedition 33. Have you played it? Have you not played it? Do you want to play it? How did you like the game? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.